Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you're new here, please hit that sub button and join the family. Smash that like button if you enjoyed today's stories.
I'd never thought I'd end up dating someone like Daniel. Not because he looked scary or anything. He actually seemed pretty chill at first, but because I guess I just didn't realize how deep this whole thing could go until it was way too late. You know how dating apps are. You swipe, you chat, maybe meet someone cool. I thought that's what was happening. But Daniel wasn't just some guy looking for a date. He was into some heavy stuff, and honestly, I only figured it out after I was way too involved. We matched on this app that I'd barely even used. I was mostly swiping to kill time, not looking for anything serious. Daniel's profile was simple, just a few pics of him hanging out with friends, a half smile, nothing weird. His messages were funny and easygoing, and he didn't ask for much at first. Just casual chatting, some memes, the usual. I liked that he wasn't all up in my business from the start. After a few days, he asked to meet up, and I said yeah. Our first date was at this dive bar on the edge of town, the kind of place with sticky floors and neon signs buzzing overhead. It wasn't fancy, but I liked the vibe. Daniel was easy to talk to, and there was this quiet confidence about him that made me feel like I was hanging out with someone who had his shit together. But from the very beginning, something about him felt off, even if I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was the way he always kept his phone face down on the table, or how he seemed to glance over his shoulder whenever someone walked by. Or maybe it was just me being paranoid. Things escalated pretty fast. After a couple of weeks of seeing each other, Daniel started inviting me to his place more often. His apartment was weird, too clean for the kind of guy he seemed to be, but also kind of empty. Like he didn't want me snooping around too much. He had this giant safe hidden behind a painting in the living room, which he didn't talk about, obviously. One night, I accidentally overheard him on the phone, whispering about a delivery that had gone sideways. He was using code words I didn't understand, but it was clear something was wrong. My stomach dropped, but I tried not to jump to conclusions. I told myself maybe it was just some business stuff, nothing to do with me. Then little things started adding up. Guys I never met would show up at his place at all hours. They never stayed long, just dropped off small packages or grabbed envelopes. Daniel's mood would change fast whenever they showed up. He'd get tense and impatient. One afternoon, I was waiting for him outside a cafe when I noticed a black car parked across the street, engine running, with tinted windows so dark you couldn't see inside. The guy behind the wheel kept looking at me through the rearview mirror like he was making sure I was there for Daniel. I got this weird feeling crawling down my spine, so I left before Daniel showed up. It didn't take long before I realized Daniel was a drug dealer. Not the kind of person you want anywhere near your life, but by then I was stuck. I didn't know how to walk away, and honestly, part of me was scared too. I felt like I was trapped in some messy story with no exit. He never tried to hide it completely, but he did it in this way where he expected me to ignore it. Like I was supposed to act like everything was normal. One time, I accidentally found a stash of cash hidden in a drawer, way more money than I'd ever seen. It was all folded and bundled up like you see in movies. I didn't say anything because I was already scared of how he'd react. Daniel was the kind of guy who could switch from being sweet to cold in seconds, and I wasn't sure which version I'd get if I confronted him. The worst nights were when his friends came over. These guys weren't just your usual crowd. They looked rough, wore cheap tattoos, and smelled like trouble. I sat in the corner, trying to stay invisible while they passed around packages and talked about moves and payments. The tension was thick, and I hated being there but felt like I had no choice. One night, I heard loud banging on the door. Daniel was shouting into the phone, telling someone he had to handle things. I was so scared I couldn't move. When the door finally opened, two guys barged in, eyes wild and cold. They were pissed about something. Money, the deal gone bad, I don't know. Daniel looked calm but ready to throw down. I just stayed quiet, hoping I wouldn't get caught in the crossfire. After that night, Daniel told me it was better if I stayed away for a while. I didn't argue. I was terrified, but part of me was relieved too. I spent the next few days hiding out, avoiding my phone, and trying to figure out what to do. But I couldn't just leave him. There was this weird pull, like I was wrapped up in something I didn't understand but couldn't escape. Every text, every call from Daniel brought a mix of fear and something I can't explain. Eventually, I found out the police had been watching him for months. That explained all the strange visits and secret meetings. But when they finally raided his place, Daniel was gone. No trace. I felt this sick mix of relief and dread because I knew the danger wasn't over. It wasn't just about drugs or money anymore. It was about who he was connected to and what that meant for me. I wasn't just some girl who dated a guy with a dark side. I was caught in a story I never wanted to be part of. Looking back, I wish I had seen the signs sooner or walked away before things got messy. But the truth is, it's not always that simple. Sometimes you're already in it before you even know it, and getting out is a whole other kind of hell. That's where I'm at now, trying to piece together what's left and figure out how to keep myself safe. Daniel's name still pops up in news stories about busts and arrests, but no one knows where he is. I'm just a girl who thought she was meeting someone new, only to find out she was stepping into something way darker than any dating app profile should ever show. I don't even know where to start because, honestly, I'm still piecing it together. I woke up in a stranger's apartment with a pounding headache and no phone. My head felt like it had been filled with smoke, and my thoughts moved like molasses. It was that kind of disorientation where you're not sure what day it is or even who you are for a second. The room was unfamiliar, stark, bland furniture, no photos, no posters, and this odd chemical smell that clung to the walls. It didn't feel like a real home. It felt staged. The light seeping through the blinds told me it was morning, maybe mid-morning. I was on a couch that smelled faintly of bleach. I immediately started checking under the cushions behind them, around the coffee table. No sign of my phone. No bag, no keys. Nothing. My heart rate picked up. My phone was the only thing that connected me to everything. Friends, family, even my own memory at this point. Without it, I didn't know who to call or how to explain where I was. The last thing I remembered clearly was the night before, sitting in my apartment, swiping through a dating app, matching with someone named Chloe. She stood out, not just because she was attractive, but because she felt real. Her messages weren't superficial. She joked about niche stuff, weird indie films, obscure memes, and it felt like she actually listened. After 2 days of chatting, we agreed to meet. The cafe was downtown. Small place, cozy lighting. I remember her walking in and smiling like we'd known each other forever. She was exactly how she looked in her profile. Better even. We talked for what felt like hours. I remember her voice, low and soft, with a slight rasp like she'd been laughing recently. She laughed a lot with me. I remember that. It felt normal, safe. But after that, nothing. No memory of leaving the cafe, no cab, no walking. No hint of how I ended up wherever I was. I didn't even know if this was her place. When I finally got up and started looking around, I realized how wrong it felt. There were some clothes on the floor, but they looked like props. A half-empty water bottle sat on the coffee table next to a book with a blank cover. The kitchen was clean, too clean, like it hadn't been used in weeks. There was no mail, no photos, no signs of someone's life. It felt like a stage, like I'd wandered into a scene that was never meant to be lived in. I eventually found my phone shoved in a drawer in the bedroom. It was turned off. When I turned it on, there were no missed calls, no texts, no messages from Chloe. The entire chat history we had was gone, like the account had never existed. When I checked the dating app, her profile was gone too. I called a couple of friends, my voice shaking, and asked if they'd heard from me the night before. One of them said we had plans to meet up at a party, but I never showed. The others said I just disappeared after I mentioned going on a date. No one heard anything after that. No pings, no check-ins. It was like I fell off the map. I reported what happened to the police, but without any evidence of a crime or a clear account of what happened, they couldn't do much. I wasn't physically injured and nothing was stolen, and I technically left with someone of my own free will, even if I didn't remember doing it. I tried to explain the feeling I had, that the place felt staged, that the girl had vanished like a ghost, that it all felt like a setup, but it just made me sound paranoid. Maybe I was, I still don't know. For the next few days, I couldn't sleep. Every little noise made me jump. I kept thinking someone was outside my door, watching, waiting. I changed my locks. I bought blackout curtains. I deleted every app I didn't trust anymore, but none of it helped, because the fear wasn't about someone breaking in. It was about what already got in. Whoever Chloe was, if that was even her real name, she planned everything. The perfect profile, the easy conversation, the smooth meetup, the friendly vibe. She knew exactly how to make me feel comfortable, and I fell for it. Hard. But what I can't wrap my head around is why. Why go through the trouble of staging an apartment? Why delete the profile and erase the messages? What did she want? Was it a robbery that never happened? A social experiment? A test? Or was I just one of several people she's done this to? The scariest part is I'll probably never know. And maybe that's the point. Whoever she was, she didn't want me to remember. And she succeeded. I've told a few close friends about it, but I've mostly kept it to myself. There's a strange shame in not knowing what happened to you. Like people expect you to have answers just because it happened to you. But I don't have any. Just a blank space in my mind and a gut feeling that I narrowly avoided something much worse. Sometimes I wonder if I was drugged. The headache, the memory loss, it all fits. But then I wonder if it was something more subtle. Psychological, like being hypnotized, manipulated, led somewhere while still technically conscious. I haven't used a dating app since. This whole thing shook something loose in me, some fundamental belief that I could spot danger before it got too close. Now I'm not so sure. Danger didn't come with a mask. It came with a soft laugh, a good conversation, and a well-lit cafe. I'm writing this because I don't want anyone else to go through what I did. It's easy to think you'd know when something's off. It's easy to assume you're in control. But sometimes you're not. Sometimes the red flags are buried under layers of charm and normalcy. And by the time you realize it, you're waking up in a place you've never seen, with no idea how you got there. All I know is that I woke up in that apartment alone, confused and scared out of my mind. And I haven't felt the same since. I never thought a dating app could mess with my head this bad. I'm not talking about awkward first dates or weird conversations. I mean actual, straight-up creepy stuff that makes you look over your shoulder all the time. It started when I matched with this guy, Drew. He was persistent, the kind of guy who kept messaging no matter how many times I said I wasn't interested. At first, I thought he'd get the hint eventually, but nope. Drew just didn't quit. I finally blocked him. I figured problem solved, right? Wrong. That's when the real nightmare started. The day after I blocked Drew, my phone kept ringing. Not regular calls, just silent ones. Like, the phone would ring, I'd answer, and no one would say a word. No breathing, no background noise, nothing. Just silence. At first, I thought it was a glitch or some telemarketer being dumb. But then it started happening all the time, in the middle of the night when I was at work, even during dinner with friends. Then the texts started coming. No words, no emojis, just weird symbols or sometimes just a blank message. But then one night, I got a text that froze me completely. It was my exact location, down to the street and building number. I checked my phone, and sure enough, the coordinates matched the address of my apartment. It wasn't a mistake. I didn't tell anyone at first because it felt too insane to explain. How do you tell your friends or family that some weirdo is tracking you through your phone? And what really got under my skin was the thought that whoever it was, they were probably watching me all day. Not just online, but for real. Like someone who knew exactly when I left the house, when I went to the grocery store, even when I was just sitting in my living room. I started panicking every time my phone buzzed. I became obsessed with checking if my location was being shared. I searched my settings, deleted apps I didn't recognize, even reset my phone twice. But the texts kept coming. Sometimes the messages included weird codes, random letters, or sometimes just dots arranged in patterns that made no sense. One night, after ignoring a silent call, I got a message that said close. Just that one word. I don't know if it meant they were nearby or if it was some kind of threat, but I didn't sleep for a week. I stopped going out alone. I changed my routes everywhere I went, to work, to the store, even to meet friends. I started checking behind me, trying to spot if anyone was following. But no one ever was. That's what was so terrifying. The silence of it all. No footsteps, no shadows, just this constant feeling that I was being watched through my phone. One afternoon, I was at a coffee shop when I got a message with a photo attached. I opened it, and it was a picture of me, taken from a distance through the window I was sitting next to. My heart dropped. I looked around, but nobody seemed to be paying attention to me. I felt frozen like I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream or run, but I just sat there, gripping my phone and pretending I wasn't freaking out. I took the picture to the police, but without any concrete proof of who was behind it. They said they couldn't do much. They told me to keep records and be careful. That made me feel even more alone because the app where Drew and I matched didn't have any way to block him completely or report him for stalking. It just gave me generic answers about safety tips and warned me not to share too much online. At some point, I started noticing my phone battery dying faster than usual. I read somewhere that spyware could run in the background and drain power, and honestly, that scared me more than anything else. If my phone was infected, then Drew or whoever this was could be listening, watching, tracking me anytime they wanted. I tried changing phones, using a burner for a while, but even then the strange texts and calls didn't stop. It was like the person wasn't just someone I matched with. They knew every way to get to me, every trick to make me feel helpless. The worst nights were when I stayed home alone. I'd sit in my dark apartment, phone in hand, waiting for the next buzz or ring. Sometimes I'd just stare at it, too scared to even answer. There was this weird mix of wanting to know what they wanted and hoping it would just end. I never saw Drew after the first few dates, but whoever was doing this clearly wasn't done. It wasn't just some creepy guy. It felt like something built into my phone, my life. I kept imagining that he had somehow slipped something onto my phone during one of our meetups, or maybe hacked into my accounts after I blocked him. I stopped telling people much about what was going on because the questions were exhausting. Why didn't you just block him? Why didn't you change your number? Why didn't you get a new phone? It's easy to say those things, but none of it worked. The stalking wasn't just about one device or one number. It was like he had a key to every part of my digital life. After a few months, the texts changed again. This time, I started getting photos of places I hadn't even been to yet. Like, I planned to visit a friend's house across town, and before I left, a photo would show up with the street sign of that neighborhood or a random car parked outside the place I was about to go. It's like whoever was doing this was always one step ahead, waiting, watching, and knowing exactly where I was before I even got there. One night, after another silent call, my phone lit up with a message that just said, "Found you." I didn't answer. I didn't call anyone. I just sat there and waited until morning, too afraid to move, too scared to turn my phone off, because maybe that was what they wanted, to lose me. I finally moved out of my apartment a few weeks later. I didn't tell anyone the full story. I just said I needed a change. I changed my phone, my number, everything I could. But sometimes, even now, when my phone buzzes with a message from an unknown number, I check the location. I'm still scared someone is watching. I matched with Riley on this dating app, and honestly, she felt like the perfect catch. You know that type where everything seems way too good to be true. She was funny, smart, had a chill vibe, and we clicked fast. After a few dates, she invited me over to her place. At first, I was pumped, felt like things were finally moving somewhere real. But then everything flipped. Out of nowhere, she started accusing me of stuff I didn't do, like really serious stuff, way off from anything that actually happened. What freaked me out was that she had screenshots of private messages, videos, stuff that looked like I was admitting things I never said or did. And the worst part, the videos were edited. I mean, totally messed up to make me look guilty. I tried explaining it all, but it was like talking to a wall. She was so convinced and had proof. At least that's what it looked like. The app wouldn't do anything either. I reported it, sent them everything, but they just kept telling me to be patient or that the content didn't break their rules. Meanwhile, my reputation was getting torn apart online and among people who knew me. It wasn't just a bad breakup or drama. It felt like I was trapped in some twisted nightmare where my own words and actions were being used against me, but none of it was real. I was stuck with no way out, and everyone was watching. Here's how it all went down. We started messaging casually at first, just some jokes and stories about dumb stuff in life. Riley was easy to talk to, nothing forced. After a week or two of texting, we met up at a cafe. She was exactly like her pictures and more interesting in person. After a few dates, she asked if I wanted to come over. It felt natural, like things were moving along. The first night at her place was fine. We hung out, watched a movie, talked about our lives. Nothing crazy, just normal. But after that, things started to change fast. One day, out of nowhere, Riley hit me with some wild accusation. She said I had been messaging other girls behind her back, sending nasty texts, and even worse, sending photos that weren't mine. I was shocked because none of it was true. Then she sent me screenshots, supposedly from my phone or social media, showing messages I never sent, things I never typed. And the videos, those were the worst. They looked like I was confessing to stuff that never happened, but it was clear they'd been cut and rearranged. Whoever did it knew what they were doing. It wasn't sloppy like a bad fake. It was scary professional. I told her she was wrong, that someone was messing with me, but she didn't want to hear it. She acted like I was lying, like I was the bad guy in this whole mess. I tried showing the app support team what was going on, but they just shrugged it off. They said the content didn't violate any guidelines or that there wasn't enough proof to act on. So I was stuck, watching my name drag through the mud while they refused to step in. On top of that, a bunch of people who didn't know me started messaging me, accusing me of things, calling me names, even threatening me. It felt like the whole world had turned against me overnight. I went back through all my devices, looking for some sign of hacking or anything suspicious, but nothing showed up. It was like this stuff appeared out of nowhere. Somehow, Riley had found a way to twist my real life into this terrifying story that wasn't true but looked convincing enough to ruin me. I kept thinking about the dates, trying to figure out when this started. Had she planted something early on? Was she watching me the whole time, waiting to hit me with this? The paranoia crept in. I started locking down my social accounts, changing passwords, trying to cover my tracks. Meanwhile, Riley just disappeared. One day she stopped responding. I tried to reach out, but nothing. No apology, no explanation, just silence. But the damage was done. The screenshots and videos were out there, spreading. People I knew believed her story without question. I even went to the police hoping to get help, but they said there wasn't much they could do. It was my word against hers, and with those videos and messages floating around, they didn't see a clear crime. They told me to get a lawyer if I wanted to fight it. It's been months since that mess started. I'm still dealing with the fallout. People doubting me, friendships strained, and every time I try to date again, there's the shadow hanging over me. Riley isn't just a girl I dated. She became this ghost in my life, a nightmare I never asked for but can't wake up from. Sometimes I wonder if she planned all of it, if she knew exactly how far she could push and how much chaos she could cause. And maybe she liked it, watching me scramble to prove a version of myself that no longer exists because someone twisted it into something ugly. The whole thing feels like a trap I fell into, one built from digital lies and a terrifying willingness to destroy someone without care. There's no real closure here. No moment where it all gets fixed or where I get to say, I was right. Just this ongoing mess where my own identity got twisted, and I'm stuck trying to live through it. The app, the dates, even Riley, all of it turned into something that wasn't supposed to happen. And the worst part, it can happen to anyone. So, I've got to tell you about the time I matched with this guy named Andy on a dating app. At first, I thought it was kind of funny. Here I am, swiping through a bunch of strangers, and then bam, I end up matching with a dude who literally lives next door. Like the guy from the apartment right beside mine. I wasn't even aware he lived there until after we started talking. At first, it felt like a total win. The convenience alone was amazing. I mean, no awkward first dates at random coffee shops across town. We could just hang out whenever, walk downstairs, grab some snacks, or catch a movie in my living room. It seemed chill, low-key, exactly what I wanted after a string of bad dates. But then things started to get weird. I began noticing little things, like Andy would show up without telling me. Not the cute surprise, hey, I'm here with Father's kind of visit, but more like he was just there, standing in the hallway or knocking at my door at odd times. Sometimes I wasn't even home, and I'd come back to find signs that someone had been inside my apartment. Doors left slightly open, a chair moved from where I left it, little things that didn't make sense. At first, I convinced myself maybe I'd forgotten he had a key or that he'd asked once, and I said yes and just didn't remember. But the truth is, I never gave him a key. We weren't even official, just talking and hanging out casually. So how was he getting inside? I started checking locks every time I left the apartment, triple locking the door and even wedging a chair under the doorknob just to feel safe. But the feeling didn't go away, it got worse. One day, I was at work and got a text from Andy asking if I was home. That freaked me out because I hadn't told him where I worked or what my schedule was. It was like he was watching me, knowing when I'd be gone. When I got back that evening, my apartment was in the same little state of disarray. Nothing missing, but definitely not how I left it. I remember sitting on my couch, staring at the door, heart pounding. I didn't want to call the cops yet. It felt like I was overreacting, but I also couldn't shake the gut feeling that I wasn't safe. Andy's dating profile, the one I matched with, suddenly felt like a cover, a way to get close, get into my life without raising suspicion. And the worst part was that nobody else knew. The other neighbors never saw him around, or if they did, they never mentioned him. It was like he was invisible to everyone but me. I even asked my landlord if he'd signed any paperwork for the building or gotten a key for my place, and the landlord looked confused like he didn't know a thing about Andy. I tried talking to Andy, asking him straight up if he'd been inside my apartment without permission. He denied it, but I could tell something was off. His eyes didn't match his words, and the calm tone felt rehearsed. It was like he wanted me to doubt myself. One night, I came home late after meeting a friend for dinner, and the door was wide open. No noise, no one inside, but everything felt wrong. Like he'd been there and left just before I got home. I called a locksmith that night and changed all the locks. New keys, new deadbolts. I thought that would solve it. But no. Not long after, I found footprints on my balcony. Barefoot prints in the dust. That balcony wasn't accessible except through my apartment, or I guessed the apartment next door. I stared at those prints for a long time, trying to convince myself I was imagining things. But I wasn't. I started avoiding the apartment as much as I could. I worked late, way out more, tried to keep busy so I didn't have to think about it. But Andy kept showing up, sometimes texting me random things like, "Saw you leave your door unlocked today." How did he know? Did he sneak in while I was getting a mail or taking out the trash? It got to a point where I didn't even want to come home. I thought about moving, but the idea of packing up my life while being watched felt impossible. I realized the whole dating app thing was just a trap he set. His profile wasn't to meet someone new. It was a way to get inside my head and inside my home. I haven't told many people about this because it sounds crazy, like I'm paranoid or making it up, but it's real and it's happening. Andy is still here, still nearby, and I still don't know if he's watching from the next apartment right now. The guy I matched with was never really a boyfriend or a crush. He was a quiet intruder, someone who used a dating app not to connect, but to get close in the worst possible way. And that's the thing. Sometimes the people you meet online aren't strangers at all. Sometimes they're just living right next door, waiting for the right moment to cross the line. I thought I was just swiping through the usual nonsense. You know, endless profiles with generic selfies and the same boring bios when I stumbled on Shay. Her pictures stood out. Not because she was ridiculously pretty, but there was something chill about her vibe, like she wasn't trying too hard to be perfect or whatever. We matched, started talking, and honestly, it was nice. Like real easy conversation without the usual awkward crap. We messaged for days, sharing little stories about ourselves, what we'd like to do on weekends, and just regular stuff that didn't feel forced. I was actually looking forward to meeting her in person. I told a couple of my friends about her, which I never do because, let's be honest, most of my dating app matches are forgettable at best. But then, one afternoon, one of my buddies, Mike, hit me up out of the blue. He sent me a screenshot from the app and asked if I knew this girl. It was Shay's profile. Only the photos were exactly the same, but the girl wasn't her. It was some random girl Mike knew from another city, someone who had no idea her pictures were being used on this app. That's when the first alarm bells went off. I told Mike it had to be a coincidence, but he was pretty sure. The girl he knew had been talking about her pictures being stolen and used by someone pretending to be her online. At that point, I felt this weird pit in my stomach. I checked Shay's profile again and did a reverse image search on Google. The results were a mess of other profiles using those exact same photos with different names. That wasn't Shay, and I've been chatting with a total fake this whole time. I reported the profile to the app. Thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. A couple days later, I started getting messages from strangers on different platforms, sending me screenshots and links to profiles with my pictures on them. I froze when I saw what they were talking about. Somebody had created fake accounts pretending to be me. Not just one, but a bunch of them. Profiles on dating apps, social media, even some sketchy chat sites. These fake accounts were messaging people, trying to start conversations, and from what I could tell, they were trying to scam others, asking for money, favors, or who knows what else. I felt like I was stuck in one of those bad movies where your life gets stolen in front of your eyes, except this wasn't fiction. It was real, and I didn't even know how to begin fixing it. The worst part was the messages people were sending me, confused or angry because I had supposedly done things I never did, said things I never said. I tried contacting the apps and sites where the fake profiles were popping up reporting each one, but they'd just vanish and reappear somewhere else. It was like playing digital whack-a-mole with no end in sight. Every time I thought I had one taken down, three more would appear, some even using photos of me from years ago, once I hadn't posted anywhere in forever. It wasn't just about my pictures. Some of these accounts had details from my life, stuff like where I worked, the city I lived in, sometimes even the names of friends. I'd never shared that stuff online in any obvious way. I started to realize whoever was doing this had dug into my life, maybe hacked accounts or scraped info to make the fake profiles look real enough to fool people. I told a few close friends what was going on, but I'm not gonna lie, it was embarrassing. Nobody wants to admit they got catfished or worse, that their identity was stolen. Some of them thought maybe I'd screwed something up or that I was exaggerating. That just made me feel even more alone in it all. As days went on, my phone kept buzzing with messages from people asking if I was okay or warning me about the scams. It got to the point where I barely recognized the person in the mirror. I stopped posting on social media because I didn't want to give the imposter any more ammo. Every notification felt like a ticking time bomb. One night, I stayed up scrolling through profiles pretending to be me. Some of them had weird bios, claiming I was some kind of businessman looking for a quick buck. Others painted me as a reckless player. None of it was true, but it didn't matter. The fake me was out there, talking to strangers, ruining whatever chances I had at dating or even just normal online interactions. I tried to piece together who might be behind this. My mind went back to Shay, or whoever she was. Did she set this all up? Was a prank gone way too far, or something worse? The fact that someone went through all this trouble, creating a fake profile of a fake person just to hook me, and then steal my identity, it was beyond messed up. It felt like I was stuck in a trap with no way out, watching my life being twisted into a joke I wasn't in on. I started second-guessing everything. Who I could trust, what I could say, even what photos to keep on my phone. The internet, which used to feel like a place to meet people, had become this dangerous maze I couldn't navigate. Eventually, I had to take a break from the apps altogether. Deleted profiles, changed passwords, even froze some accounts. I got help from a couple of friends who knew about this stuff and tried to clean up the mess, but it felt like trying to bail out a sinking ship with a teaspoon. Months later, some of the fake profiles still pop up now and then. People still message me confused or angry, and I have to explain the same story over and over. I don't even try to date online anymore. It's like someone stole a part of me and won't give it back, and all I can do is live with the mess. That's what happened with Shay, or whoever was behind that name, and the nightmare that followed. I wanted something real, but instead, I got pulled into a game I never agreed to play. The worst part is knowing that out there, some people are still talking to the fake me, while the real me is left trying to pick up the pieces. You ever get that weird gut feeling that someone's watching you? Like when you're out doing your thing and you suddenly realize you've seen the same face more than once, in more than one place, and it doesn't make sense. At first, you brush it off. Coincidence. Maybe they live nearby, maybe you're imagining it, but then it keeps happening. That feeling? That low-grade tension creeping into your skin. I had that, and it didn't stop at a feeling. It turned into something way worse. I never thought someone I met on a dating app could mess with my whole sense of safety, but here we are. It started with Gary. We matched on a Tuesday, I think. I was bored, half watching TV, half swiping through profiles. His wasn't flashy, no shirtless gym selfies, no weird bios. Just a few pictures of him hiking, smiling with his dog, and one of the coffee mug that said world's okayest guy. It was low-key and kind of endearing. We started chatting, and things felt surprisingly normal. He was thoughtful in the way he texted, not pushy. Actually asked questions and didn't just talk about himself, which felt like a small miracle. We had a couple of casual dates, drinks, coffee, a movie. Nothing earth-shattering, but enough to make me feel like maybe this could go somewhere. At first, I appreciated how attentive he was. He remembered little things I mentioned, like the fact that I preferred oat milk in my lats or that I worked near a park downtown. He didn't talk over me, which is rare. I liked that he made eye contact when we talked. It felt like someone was finally listening, really listening. But then things started to feel off. It started small. I was grabbing lunch at a new delight near my office, one I'd never mentioned to him, and I noticed someone across the street. reading a newspaper wearing a hoodie, not doing anything obvious. But something about his posture stuck out. Something about the shape of his face. I looked closer and my stomach flipped. It was Gary. I'm pretty sure if he saw me see him, because he quickly lowered the paper. I thought weird, but maybe he just works around here. Maybe I was reading too much into it. I didn't say anything at first. We hadn't been seeing each other long, and it felt paranoid to assume the worst. Then it happened again. I was at the gym, headphones in, zoning out on the treadmill when I noticed someone standing in a smoothie bar. Not ordering, not talking, just standing. Watching. It was Gary. He didn't say anything, didn't wave. Just stood there. I texted him, "Are you at my gym right now?" He replied 2 minutes later, "Haha, yeah, total coincidence. I was meeting a friend nearby." Okay, that could be true. I wanted to believe it was true, but my gut was already tying itself in knots. What started as occasional run-ins turned into patterns. He showed up at a tiny bookstore I go to on Sundays, where I'd never mentioned I hung out. Then he popped up at the dog park I visit with my friend's dog when she's out of town, something I know I never told him. And every time, it was the same routine. He'd act surprised, like we just happened to cross paths. He played it off like fate, like we had similar taste, but the timing was always too perfect. One night, over dinner, I brought it up, lightly. "You got a habit of showing up in my favorite spots, huh?" He smiled. I guess we just think alike. But there was something off about the way he said it. Not embarrassed, not flustered, just smug, like he was proud of himself for getting that close without me catching on sooner. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying all the places he'd been. All the little comments he made that, in hindsight, suggested he knew more than I told him. How did he know about the coffee shop I go to on Sunday mornings? Or which parking structure I use for work? Out of a mix of panic and curiosity, I asked the security guard at my office if the cameras ever picked up anything weird. He said they archived footage for a few weeks, and if I gave him dates he could take a look. A couple days later, he called me down to the front desk. He didn't say much, just played me a clip from the parking lot. And there he was, Gary, standing near my car, not once, not twice. 3 separate times, all before our first date, just standing there, loitering, pretending to check his phone, watching the building. I felt my whole body go cold. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't just some guy who happened to show up at the same coffee shop. He'd been watching me, following me, before I even knew his name. I confronted him. He didn't deny it. He just smiled, not sheepishly, like it was cute or awkward. It was more calculated. He said something like, "I just wanted to get a sense of who you were before I made a move." That was it. No apology. No regret. Just that same unsettling calm, like he didn't see anything wrong with what he'd done. I blocked his number that night and deleted the app, but the damage was already done. Every shadow outside my window felt like him. Every time I heard a knock I wasn't expecting, my chest locked up. I started taking longer routes home, watching for taillights behind me. I kept a knife next to my bed and stopped going to the coffee shop. I didn't feel safe anywhere anymore. Not in my apartment, not in my car, not even in my own head. Eventually, I moved. New apartment, new routine, different side of town. But it didn't really fix the fear, just shifted it to a new ZIP code. And the part that eats at me. I don't know why he chose me. I don't know how long he'd been watching. Was I the only one? Or just the next one? There are people who say you should trust your gut, and they're right. But they never tell you what to do after your gut proves you right. They don't prepare you for what it feels like to have been prey without even knowing you were being hunted. So yeah, dating apps can bring weirdos and creeps. That's expected. But sometimes you meet someone who doesn't just lie about their height or their job. Sometimes you meet someone who's already been in your life without your permission. If you start noticing the same face in too many places, don't ignore it. Because sometimes it's not a coincidence. It's a plan. You think breaking up is supposed to be the hard part. For me, that was just the start of a nightmare I didn't even see coming. It wasn't the usual messy texts or awkward run-ins. No, this was way worse. It hit me after I matched with this girl, Jenny, who actually seemed like someone I could really get along with. But before I could even go on a proper date, my whole life started falling apart, and I had no clue why. So here's how it went down. Ginny and I connected over the app like normal people do. I liked how she was down to earth and funny, not trying to impress or put on a show. She wasn't like the usual profiles I'd swiped through. Things seemed cool. We messaged for a week or so, and then she agreed to meet. But right before our date, my phone started blowing up with messages from random girls. They weren't friendly. Instead, they were telling me I was dangerous, violent, even abusive. Crazy stuff I knew wasn't true, but at first, I thought maybe someone was messing with me as a joke. Then it got worse. Girls I had matched with suddenly ghosted me after hearing these stories. Friends I'd known for years started avoiding me like I had some contagious disease. People I barely knew were sending me screenshots of messages from girls warning them about me. My reputation was getting shredded in real time, and I was standing there, clueless, trying to piece it all together. I started asking around, trying to figure out who was doing this. No one would admit anything, but I kept hearing whispers about some crazy ex who was sending these lies to everyone I was talking to. At first, I didn't believe it. I mean, my ex and I didn't part on great terms, but she wasn't that kind of person, right? Wrong. One night, I was scrolling through the app and something caught my eye. I saw a profile that looked just like her, or close enough to be her, but under a different name, using photos from a few years ago when we were still together. I decided to dig deeper and found multiple profiles all around the app, each with different fake names, but all sharing disturbing stories about me. They were messaging my matches, friends, and even people I didn't know, spinning the same twisted lies. It wasn't just random harassment. It was a carefully planned campaign to ruin me. I was trapped in the middle of it. I confronted her, or at least tried to, but she was nowhere to be found. She deleted her real profile and vanished like a ghost. But the damage was done. Every new match I tried to make was met with suspicion. Every friend I tried to reconnect with looked at me differently. The worst part was Ginny. I wanted to tell her what was happening, but before I could, she pulled away. Said she didn't feel safe or comfortable anymore. I can't blame her. How could she not believe what she heard? I kept fighting, reporting all those fake profiles, but they kept popping up like weeds. Every time one was taken down, two more showed up. I started losing hope. It felt like I was living in some horror movie where the villain is invisible and no one believes the victim. One night, I found myself staring at my phone, scrolling through profiles that weren't real people but stories, all designed to keep me isolated. I thought about how she must be watching it all happen, sitting somewhere with this sick smile, enjoying the chaos she created, knowing she had me exactly where she wanted. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just some breakup drama, it was calculated. A kind of digital stalking, using lies and fake profiles as weapons to erase me from the dating world and the life I'd built. It was like she rewrote my history and my future with every new message she sent. I lost more than just dates or friends. I lost trust. In the app and people in myself. I kept wondering if I'd ever find someone who'd believe me, who'd see past the web of lies spun by someone who was supposed to care once. I don't know what she wanted in the end. Maybe it was control, revenge, or just pure cruelty. But the way she pulled it off, using the dating app to turn my life upside down, hiding behind fake profiles and anonymity, made me feel small, like I was disappearing piece by piece, pixel by pixel. And the worst part is that no one knew. No one could see the invisible war being waged against me on their phones. It was like the app wasn't just matching people up anymore. It was matching me with my own destruction. Ginny disappeared too. I never got to tell her the truth, never got to explain what was really going on. Maybe she's out there thinking I was the one to avoid. And that's the cruelest thing of all. The lies didn't just ruin my dating life. They took away the chance at something real. So, yeah, if you think a breakup is the worst thing that can happen after a relationship, think again. Sometimes it's what happens when your ex turns their bitterness into a full-blown war that you don't even know you're fighting. And it's all happening behind the screen, in the quiet messages no one else sees until it's too late. I thought I was doing everything right. Playing it safe, following all the advice, meeting in public, telling a friend where I was going, choosing one of the safe meet locations recommended by the dating app itself. That was supposed to mean something. The app had this feature that marked certain spots with little icons, monitored area, camera coverage, user check-ins. It even pushed alerts like, hey, this cafe is great for first dates. Safe, crowded, visible. It made you feel like someone out there was trying to protect you. So when I finally decided to meet Elliot, the guy I'd been chatting with for a couple of weeks, I picked one of those places, a busy outdoor market downtown, right in the middle of a sunny Saturday rush. I remember feeling good about it, confident, like I had taken all the right steps. Elliot seemed normal too. Chill, responsive, decent sense of humor. He asked good questions. He didn't try to push anything, didn't overstep. When I mentioned I preferred to meet in public the first time, he said, absolutely. Public's good. Safer. That was probably what made me let my guard down. He seemed reasonable. I got there early. The market was full of energy, kids dragging parents from stall to stall, food vendors shouting out specials, someone playing acoustic guitar in the corner. It smelled like cinnamon and grilled meat and fried dough, and the crowd gave me this strange comfort, like nothing bad can happen here, not with this many people around. I sat on a bench near one of the busier corners and scrolled through my phone while I waited. A few minutes later, Elliot showed up. Looked exactly like his photos. Tall, kind of lanky, scruffy brown hair tucked under a hoodie with black and yellow stripes down the sleeves. He had this easy smile, casual posture, and we just started walking, talking like it wasn't our first time meeting. We hit the usual first date topics, favorite movies, weird jobs we've had, food preferences, travel stories. He was easy to talk to, which I appreciated. But about 15 minutes in, I started to notice something that didn't sit right. There was a group of men hanging nearby, not browsing, not shopping, just hovering. They didn't look like tourists or casual passersby. They weren't holding food or drinks, and none of them were talking much. They weren't doing anything really except looking at us. I glanced over and tried not to stare, but I could feel it, this intensity coming off them like static. What said to chill through me was what they were wearing. Jackets and hoodies with the same exact color scheme as Elliot's, black and yellow. Not all matching, but enough that it didn't feel like coincidence. One had a beanie with yellow lettering. Another wore a windbreaker with stripes down the sleeves just like his. They kept glancing between Elliot and me like they were checking something off a list. I laughed nervously and asked Elliot if he had friends at the market. He looked around, shook his head, and said, "Nah, why?" I shrugged it off, said it was nothing. But my internal alarm had started going off. Still, I stayed, because I didn't want to seem rude, because I wasn't sure if I was just overthinking. Because leaving felt dramatic, and maybe, I hate admitting this, but maybe I didn't want to admit that I might have made a mistake. Then Elliot offered to grab us some bottled water from a nearby stall, said he'd be right back. While he walked off, one of the men, tall, clean-shaven, sunglasses despite the shade, stepped closer to me, just a few feet away. Not close enough to touch me, but definitely inside my space. He didn't say anything, just stood there, staring, like he was trying to memorize every inch of my face. I felt frozen. My legs were screaming to move, to run, but I just sat there like I was watching myself from outside my body. I don't remember what broke the moment. Maybe someone bumped into him, or maybe Elliot came back. But the man drifted away, back into the crowd, vanishing behind a stall selling handmade scarves. The rest of the date, I don't remember much. I made an excuse pretty quickly, something about needing to meet a friend, and I got out of there. Back home, I couldn't shake the feeling in my chest. That tight, coiled sensation like something had followed me home. I opened the app again, half out of habit, half out of dread. That's when the notification popped up. A profile you interacted with has been flagged for suspicious behavior. Then it showed Elliot's face. Below that, photos of some of the other men from the market. I gasped. It was them. The guy in the beanie. The one with the sunglasses. The app said they had been reported multiple times for stalking, harassment, attempts to lure users to secondary locations. One was even linked to alleged assaults, though nothing had been confirmed. The app marked the market as a safe meet zone. But it wasn't safe. Not that day. Not for me. I tried reporting the experience again, just to be thorough, but the app's response felt sterile, generic. Thank you for your feedback. Your safety matters to us. Yeah. Then why were those men even able to use the platform in the first place? Why was Elliot still able to get close to someone like me? I kept thinking about that market, the hoodie. The way those men mirrored him. It wasn't random. It was planned. They were signaling something. Coordinated, and I'll never stop wondering, what would happen if I hadn't left early? If I let him talk me into a quieter corner? If that man had reached out instead of just looking. A few days later, I saw someone outside my building. Middle of the night, just standing across the street under a flickering street lamp. Black jacket, yellow on the sleeves. My stomach dropped, and I looked again. He was gone. Maybe it was my imagination, but maybe it wasn't. I changed my locks. I got a new phone. Deleted every app that shared my location. Started riding in different rideshare cars. Told my friends, but the feeling didn't go away. And the worst part, the app kept sending me suggestions for safe meet spots. Kept pretending it had everything under control. I can't trust that anymore. Not after what happened. Elliot's profile is gone. The app says it doesn't exist, but I know better. He exists. And those men do too. I just don't know where or when they'll show up next. So if you're reading this and thinking about meeting someone from a dating app, do your homework. Don't rely on cute icons and push notifications that say safe, because sometimes the trap is hiding in plain sight, right where you feel safest. And sometimes the person you think you're meeting isn't alone. Not even close. I never thought swiping right on one girl would turn into the weirdest, most unsettling obsession I've ever had. It started like every other night, me on the couch, flicking through profiles with one hand, half watching reruns on TV, not really expecting anything. Just passing time. Then I saw her. Harry. Not flashy, not posing in front of cliffs or mirror selfies in clubs. She had this unfiltered smile in her photos, like she wasn't trying too hard, but still managed to stand out. Something about her felt real in a way most profiles didn't, so I swiped right. We matched instantly. For a few days, everything felt normal. We messaged back and forth, that early stage where it's just jokes, light banter, bits of personality poking through. She mentioned a few of her favorite spots around town. This small coffee shop by the river, a park filled with wildflowers that apparently no one else knew about, an old, cluttered bookstore downtown where time seemed to slow down. She had a way of describing things that made them feel magical. I was drawn in. I don't even know when I stopped just being curious and started being fascinated. Then one morning she vanished. No warning. I sent her a good morning message and got nothing back. I waited a day, maybe two, figured she got busy. But when I tried to check her profile again, it was gone. Like she had never been there to begin with. No trace. Not unmatched. Erased. Vanished. I figured maybe she changed her mind. Deleted the app. Got freaked out. Life happens. But something about it stuck in my head like a splinter. Something didn't feel right. I couldn't shake it. The places she mentioned kept playing over in my mind. That riverside coffee shop. The hidden park. The old bookstore. I hadn't been to any of them before, but now they were burned into my brain. I wasn't even trying to stalk her or anything. I just wanted to understand, closure. Maybe even just prove she was real. So I did what anyone would do. I kept swiping. Not looking for new dates, just scanning profiles. Faces. Backgrounds. Anything familiar. That's when things started to get strange. The first clue was subtle. A girl with a picture of that riverside coffee shop. Not Harriet, but the same shop, same window seat she described. The girl's smile didn't match her eyes. There was something off. Her bio said, "Some places tell stories if you listen closely." I got chills. It felt like she was talking directly to me. Then there was another profile, a different girl, standing in a field that looked like the park Harry mentioned. But the flowers were dead, all brown and wilting. The caption just read, "Where the light fades." It didn't feel like a poetic musing. It felt like a message. The more I swiped, the more I found. Photos taken at that same bookstore. Not happy selfies, though, dark angles, grainy shots, weird shadows lurking in corners. One bio said, "Books can hide more than words." Another had GPS coordinates listed, no explanation. I plugged them into a map, it pointed to the park. The dying one. I started taking notes. Some bios contained strings of numbers. Others referenced local news stories I remembered from months back. Missing people, strange disappearances. Stuff that had been chalked up to runaways or mental health episodes. One profile even quoted a news article word for word. She left no trace. Just vanished on a Tuesday morning. That was the same day Harriet disappeared. It stopped being coincidence. I didn't know what to call it anymore. Some twisted scavenger hunt. A puzzle, a trap. But it wasn't random. Someone was using the app to leave clues. Layered messages only the right kind of person, maybe the wrong kind, would catch. It was like Harriet had dropped breadcrumbs, or someone had dropped them about her. Then one night, I found a photo that made my skin crawl. A girl, different again, but standing on a bridge by the river Harriet loved. But in the background, barely visible, was a figure. Blurry, out of focus, but unmistakably human. Tall, watching. Her caption, "They wait where no one looks." That night I didn't sleep. I kept replaying it all in my head like some fever dream. I went back through Harriet's old messages. Tried to remember her exact phrasing, her tone. She never said anything ominous, but now it all felt encoded, like she was leading me somewhere without saying it out loud. Then came the most disturbing profile yet. No photo, just a gray silhouette, but the bio simply said, "Still watching." That broke me. I deleted the app that night, wiped it from my phone. I even threw out the notebook I'd been using to write everything down, but it didn't help. The feeling didn't go away. Every time I walk by a river, I glance behind me. When I'm in a bookstore, I catch myself checking reflections in the windows. Sometimes I swear I see Harriet on a train, in a passing car, and crowd. But she's always gone before I can be sure. And the worst part is, I don't know it's real anymore. Was Harriet even her real name? Was she reaching out? Or was I baited, led into someone's twisted little game, where all of this was by design? A trap I didn't realize I'd entered until it was too late. I told a friend once just to see if saying it out loud would make it less insane. They laughed, said I was spiraling. Maybe I am. But if you'd seen what I've seen, those faces, those messages, the cold logic connecting all of it, you'd think twice. I don't use dating apps anymore. I barely use my phone for anything social. I turned off location tracking, changed my number. But that sense of being watched, it never really goes away. Sometimes I still dream about her. About Harry. And in a dream, I'm back in that coffee shop by the river. She's sitting across from me, smiling, holding a book I can't quite read. But outside the window, in the reflection, there's someone standing by me, watching, waiting. I always wake up before I can turn around. So yeah, be careful who you swipe on. Sometimes a match isn't just a connection. Sometimes it's an invitation. And sometimes the only thing watching you is something you'll never fully see until it's already too late. I never thought meeting someone on a dating app could turn into something straight out of a nightmare. Honestly, at first I thought I was just being paranoid. You know how it is. You swipe, you match, you chat, and sometimes you meet someone who just clicks. But what happened with Minner? It wasn't just weird. It was like someone had taken the life I'd lived and started walking right alongside me in the shadows. It started normal enough. I'd matched with Minter on one of those apps I barely even use. His pictures were kind of old school cool. Nothing flashy. Just a guy who looked like he could be normal, whatever that means. We started texting, and he seemed interested in everything I was into. He remembered tiny details like my favorite coffee shop and that weird vintage bookstore I like to hang out in. At first, it felt flattering, like someone was really paying attention. But after a while, it got creepy. I noticed it wasn't just him remembering stuff from our chats. It was like he already knew what I was doing before I even told him. For example, I'd mentioned I was going to the park after work, and then bam, he'd pop up there out of nowhere. Not in a casual way like bumping into someone on the street. It was more like he was waiting, standing in the exact spot where I always sat on the bench by the fountain. And it wasn't a one-time thing. This happened over and over every time I went somewhere. He was there like clockwork. At first, I thought maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe he just lived nearby or worked in the area. But I started keeping track. He was showing up places even when I hadn't told him I was going. The grocery store, the gym, the bus stop. It felt like he had some kind of tracker on me, but that sounded insane. Who would do that? And why? Things got even weirder one afternoon when I was walking home and saw him talking to someone on the corner of my street. The thing was, the person he was talking to looked exactly like my twin sister, Emma. Emma died years ago in a car accident. It was something I'd barely thought about in a long time because I'd built a life without her. But here was this guy, talking to someone who looked just like her. Same hair, same laugh that I could swear I recognized from the videos we had as kids. I stopped dead in my tracks and watched from behind a tree. Minter wasn't just chatting casually, he was close, leaning in like they had some kind of secret. The figure was nodding, smiling, like they were sharing something private. And then suddenly, the person turned around and vanished, not that walked away, but just disappeared, like a glitch or a trick of the light. That's when I started to think maybe it wasn't just stalking. Maybe Minter was connected to something darker, something I didn't understand yet. After that, I tried to dig into who Minter really was. His social media was weirdly empty, like he'd scrubbed everything or never existed online before the app. His phone calls were always from numbers I didn't recognize, and he rarely talked about his past or family. When I asked him about his job or where he lived, he'd give vague answers. It was like he was hiding something or someone. I started noticing other odd things around my apartment too. Small stuff at first, lights flickering, my phone buzzing with texts from numbers I didn't know, weird symbols drawn on my window with some kind of marker that I was sure weren't there before. It was like someone was trying to send me messages or warn me. I brought it up to a friend once, and they joked that maybe Minter was some kind of ghost or an entity, like the stories where spirits come back as people you know. It sounded ridiculous at the time, but after seeing him talk to that twin, and then watching how my legs started feeling invaded and off, I wasn't so sure anymore. One night, I stayed up scrolling through old photo albums and social media archives, trying to find any clue about Minter or what he might want. And that's when I stumbled onto something strange. There was an old news article about a guy who disappeared in the same city years ago. His name wasn't Minter, but the description matched him exactly. The article mentioned his obsession with a woman who had a twin sister, and then the guy just vanished without a trace. I felt like the ground dropped out from under me. Could it be the same Minter? Was he trying to get close to me because of Emma? Or worse, was he trying to replace her? I confronted him, but of course, he didn't admit anything. Instead, he smiled in a way that felt more cold than warm, like he already knew what I was thinking and didn't care. From then on, he stopped showing up everywhere like clockwork, but the feeling of being watched never left. I changed my locks, got new phones, even moved a few blocks away. But sometimes when I'm out and about, I swear I catch a glimpse of someone watching me from across the street. Tall, quiet, maybe with a familiar smile. What freaks me out most is the thought that maybe Minter was never really here the way I thought. Maybe he was something tied to the past, to my sister, to memories I can't escape. And maybe he's still out there, waiting to fill the space that was left behind. That's my story. I don't know if Minter was real or some twisted ghost story, but I know one thing. He wasn't just a guy from an app. He was something else. I moved into this old apartment in a part of town that felt more forgotten than lived in. It was cheap, kind of sketchy, but I didn't care. I needed somewhere to crash while I figured stuff out. My roommate Jake was a pretty chill dude at first. We'd share a few beers, watch some TV, and keep to ourselves mostly. But soon after I got there, Jake started talking about this girl named Sydney, saying he met her on some dating app. At first, I didn't think much of it. People always have their stories. But then I realized something weird. Nobody else in the building had ever seen Sydney. Not the landlord, not the neighbors, not even the delivery guy who dropped off our mail. Jake would say she was busy or just working late. But the thing was, she never left any trace. No mail, no packages, no messages that I ever saw, no phone calls or texts when I was around. Jake started acting kind of strange about her too. He pulled his phone out every few minutes, like he was waiting for a text or call from her. He'd stare at the screen like it was the only thing keeping him sane. Then came the paranoia. He told me he was sure Sydney was spying on him even when she wasn't physically around. According to him, she had somehow hacked into all the smart devices in the apartment. The smart speaker would turn on randomly, playing faint whispers or weird static. Lights would flicker on and off when he was alone, and his phone's camera sometimes activated itself for no reason. He was convinced she was watching him through those devices, tracking his every move. At first, I thought he was just stressed or maybe messing with me. But then things got creepier. One night, I was out late in the living room when the lights suddenly dimmed, and the speaker started playing a weird, distorted voice that sounded almost like a person whispering. Jake rushed in, pale and tense, swearing Sydney was behind it. The more he talked about Sydney, the more I started to wonder if she was even real. He'd tell stories about conversations they had or plans they made, but whenever I asked to meet her or even just see a photo, he'd dodge it or say it was a privacy thing. But it didn't add up. How could someone be in his life so much and no one else know about her? Then Jake started having these moments where he'd stare at his phone like it was alive. He'd say Sydney was sending him messages through hidden apps or codes only he could understand. Sometimes he'd pull out a weird app I'd never seen before with no clear purpose that he claimed Sydney used to talk to him when she wasn't around. It freaked me out, but I couldn't just call him crazy. Something about it felt off. One day, I was in the kitchen when Jake's phone started buzzing nonstop. He grabbed it, looked at the screen, and then showed me a message. It was a photo of our apartment, taken from the hallway outside our door. Only no one had been out there. No packages, no visitors, nothing. It was like someone had been watching us without us knowing. He told me Sydney had access to cameras in the building, maybe even hacked into the landlord's system. He said she was always there, even when she wasn't. It wasn't just a girl anymore. It was something living inside his phone and the apartment itself. That's when I started paying attention to the weird glitches around the place. My own phone sometimes acted strange, apps crashing or opening on their own. The TV would switch channels randomly. I hear quiet footsteps when I was alone. It was like Sydney was everywhere and nowhere at once. Jake started locking himself in his room, refusing to come out unless it was to grab food or smoke. He said Sydney was watching and waiting, and sometimes he even talked to her out loud like she was there with him. I was scared for him, but I didn't know what to do. Then came the moment that made me really question reality. One evening, I was sitting on the couch when my phone lit up with a notification. It was a video message from an unknown number. I opened it and saw a clip of Jake asleep in his bed. The camera angle was from inside his room, close enough to see his face clearly. We freaked out, trying to figure out how someone had gotten inside the apartment to film him. Jake was convinced it was Sydney. He said she could be anyone or no one, and that she might be controlling the building's devices from somewhere else. Days went by like this. Jake's paranoia turned to obsession. He barely left the apartment. His phone was glued to his hand, always scanning for signals or new messages from Sydney. I kept trying to convince him she wasn't real, that maybe this was all some breakdown or a hack from someone else trying to mess with us. But the more I saw, the harder it was to believe he was making it up. The creepy messages, the random device glitches, the unseen presence that felt so damn real. It was like Sydney was haunting our lives through technology. One night, Jake just vanished. Left his stuff, his phone, everything. No note, no explanation. I tried calling, but his phone was off. The apartment felt empty without him, but also heavier, like the strange presence was still there, watching me now. I haven't heard from Jake since. I checked the landlord's records, and no one named Sydney had ever lived here or visited. The smart devices still act weird sometimes, and sometimes I swear I catch a glimpse of a shadow near the window. So yeah, that's my story about Jake, Sydney, and a kind of digital ghost that may or may not be real. I don't know if Sydney is some hack, a hallucination, or something else entirely, but whatever she is, she's not gone. And honestly, I'm starting to wonder if she ever really was. I don't even know where to start, but if you ever think reporting someone on a dating app is the end of it, well, this might change your mind. Because it wasn't the end for me. It was just the beginning of something way worse. I matched with this guy, Dan. At first, he seemed chill enough, typical dating app stuff, a little flirty but nothing wild. Then he started getting pushy, texting nonstop even when I wasn't replying, asking where I was, who I was with. The vibe shifted quick, and honestly, it made me uncomfortable, so I reported him. Just clicked the button to report harassment and blocked him. Felt like I did my part. Thought that was the end. But the next day, my phone started acting up, like really weird. Apps crashing randomly, freezing, notifications popping up out of nowhere. At first, I blamed it on an update or a glitch, but then things got a lot worse. I started getting texts from numbers I didn't recognize. No messages, just pictures. At first, they were kind of creepy but vague, blurry shadows, dark corners. Then the photos got more personal. One was my front door. Another was a shot of my living room, taken from outside the window. I swear I didn't take those pictures, and no one else should have been in my apartment. I tried blocking the numbers, but new ones kept coming in. Every few minutes, a new disturbing photo. A silhouette lurking near the bushes outside my bedroom window, a picture of my keys on the kitchen table, even a close-up of my shoes by the door. It felt like someone was watching me all the time. That's when the real panic hit. My phone wasn't just glitching anymore. It was like someone had taken control. Apps would open and close by themselves. The camera would randomly turn on for a few seconds, then shut off. I kept hearing tiny clicks like the mic was on. I knew I wasn't imagining it. Someone was inside my phone watching me. I started piecing it together. The timing was too weird to ignore. Dan was the only guy I'd interacted with recently who acted creepy enough to do this. But how the hell did he get into my phone? I hadn't downloaded anything suspicious, hadn't clicked any weird links. I don't even know if I opened one of his messages before blocking him, but it didn't take much. I decided to reach out to a friend who knows about tech stuff. She said it sounded like my phone got hacked, probably through one of those spyware apps that run in the background and send info to whoever installed them. She tried scanning my phone, but said sometimes this kind of spyware hides really well. Meanwhile, the texts kept coming. I started getting messages with times attached, like someone was marking the hours they were outside my place. One night, I had a photo of my bedroom window, the blinds half open, and I wasn't even home. That was when I really freaked out. Someone had been inside my apartment, or at least close enough to snap that pic. I told my roommate what was happening, and we started locking every door and window and installing new locks, and setting up cheap cameras around the apartment. The cameras caught a few blurry figures outside, just standing there for minutes before disappearing into the night. No faces, just shadows. Every day felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I started getting texts from Dan's old profile names, the ones he used before he got reported. Each message was worse than the last. Not just photos, but weird quotes, like, "I'm closer than you think," or "See you soon." It was obvious he wasn't just stalking me online, he was stalking me offline. What scared me the most was knowing he'd been watching for months before I even reported him. I realized he must have been tracking me from the start, gathering info, maybe even hacking into my other devices. My smart speaker started acting weird too, turning on when I was alone, playing static or weird noises. I reported everything to the cops, but honestly, it felt like they didn't really get how serious it was. We'll look into it, they said, but nothing ever changed. Dan disappeared online, deleted his profiles, but the texts and photos kept coming from different numbers and emails. One night, I found a note taped to my door. Just a small piece of paper with my name and the words, "Let's meet," written in shaky handwriting. My heart dropped. I didn't know if it was Dan or someone else pretending, but I knew it wasn't a joke. I told my friends, got a security system installed, and started staying with them more often. I even considered moving out, but part of me wanted to face it, to catch whoever was behind this. I couldn't live like this forever. I don't know how he hacked me or how many other people he's watching right now. The thought that some random guy on a dating app could get this close to me, invade my life, and disappear when I try to fight back is terrifying. So yeah, next time you think about reporting someone and moving on, just remember, sometimes they don't just vanish. Sometimes they come closer. That's my story about Dan. I don't know if I'll ever feel safe again, but I do know one thing. Whatever happened wasn't just online. It was real, and it's still happening. I never thought I'd be the kind of person to get freaked out by a dating app. I mean, I'd done the swiping thing before. Messy, weird, sometimes fun. But this time it felt different. Like I was walking into something that wasn't just about awkward dates or bad texts. This was something else. It all started when I matched with this guy. Let's call him Mark. At first, he seemed pretty normal. Cute photos, decent bio, no red flags. But from our first conversation, something was off. It was like he was copying me. Not in a weird, creepy way at first, but kind of flattering. He agreed with everything I said, liked all the same music I mentioned, even told the same dumb jokes I made. I thought maybe we just clicked, like finally someone who got me. But then it started to feel less like a connection and more like an echo chamber. The more we talked, the more I realized Mark wasn't adding anything new to the conversation. He'd repeat my opinions, my phrases, even my slang. If I said I hated pineapple on pizza, he'd say the exact same thing right after. If I joked about how bad my cooking was, he'd say he was the same almost word for word. It was flattering at first, like finally someone who truly understood me, but it got old fast. Talking to him felt like looking in a mirror that just repeats what I say. No real personality, just this reflection of me. But I kept texting back. I didn't want to be rude, and maybe, just maybe, I thought I could figure him out. Then I noticed something weird. Sometimes when I was just hanging out with friends or on a call, Mark would bring up details I hadn't shared with him, like the exact joke I told a friend on a voice call or a random thing I mentioned in passing during a video chat. I thought maybe I was oversharing, but I never talked about those things in our messages. How could he know? That's when the creep factor kicked in. I started paying attention. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Maybe he had friends in common or was just really good at guessing. But then I caught him doing it in real time. Like I'd say something in a group chat, and the next message from him would reference it, even though I never told him about the chat. I got paranoid. So I started looking for signs. Did he have access to any of my social media that I didn't know about? Had I given him my number or email by accident? Nothing obvious. But then the worst thought hit me. What if he was secretly recording me? Like every conversation I had, every joke I made, everything I said when I thought he wasn't listening. I checked my devices. No weird apps, no unusual permissions. But the truth was, it didn't really matter if he was smart enough to hide it. I dug deeper. I looked up his name, his pictures, tried to find anything about him online. Nothing solid. No social media beyond the dating app, no public profiles, nothing that proved he was a real person with a life. It felt like he was just there for me. And then the messages changed. No longer was he just mimicking what I said. Now he started texting things I never said, but that I would say, like he was writing what he thought I wanted to hear, not just copying me anymore. It was like he'd gone from human echo to someone who'd studied me so hard that he could predict what I was thinking. One night, I was home alone. I got a message from him saying he wanted to meet. For real this time, not just a video chat or text. He wanted to see me face to face. I should have felt excited or scared, or maybe both, but instead I felt this cold dread. Because I didn't even know who he really was. I didn't want to be the paranoid girl, but I started wondering how long he'd been watching me. How many times had he listened when I thought I was alone? Had he followed me, watched where I went? Did he know the route I take to work? The coffee shop I go to every morning? I stopped answering, tried to block him, but somehow his messages kept coming from different numbers, different profiles. It was like he had more than one way in. The more I pushed him away, the more persistent he got. I told a friend, and she said maybe it was some creepy stalker situation. Maybe I needed to be careful, but honestly, I didn't know how to explain it to anyone without sounding crazy. Because it wasn't just stalking, it was like someone had taken everything about me and made a copy, then sent it back, wanting me to fall for it. I changed my number, deleted my social media, reset all my passwords. I thought that would stop him. For a while, it did. No messages, no echoes. But then, just a few days ago, I got a new message from a number I didn't recognize. It was a simple text. I know you. And I swear, just reading that, I felt like the whole thing had never really ended. I never thought I'd fall for someone I'd never met in person, but there I was, completely hooked on this woman named Elise. She came out of nowhere, or at least that's how it felt. We matched on some random dating app I don't even remember downloading. One of those late night swiping sessions where you're not even looking for anything serious, just bored, tired of your own head. Then suddenly, there she was, Elise. She was different from the start. Her messages didn't feel like the typical small talk. She wasn't asking for pics or what I did for a living in that robotic tone you get used to. She felt real. Her profile said she was working overseas. Something international, nonprofit, or maybe research. I don't remember the details exactly because it kept shifting slightly, but her tone was warm, direct, honest in a way that felt rare. And that's what hooked me. We talked every single day. Morning, noon, late at night. She always seemed to be around. I'd wake up to voiced notes where she'd describe the rain hitting her window or the way the city lights looked from her apartment. She sent me videos, little clips of her laughing or walking down some street that I couldn't quite place. She looked into the camera like she knew me, like we already belonged to each other. And God, she listened. She remembered tiny things like how I took my coffee, my childhood dog's name, the horror films that freaked me out as a kid, but I still watched religiously. She remembered stories I'd only told once, things I hadn't told anyone in years. I told myself it was love. I mean, what else could it be? We shared things people in real relationships don't even talk about. I imagined us meeting, what she'd smell like, how her laugh would sound in person, how we'd stay up watching horror movies and fall asleep on the couch. I even started making travel plans, just to see her, but she kept pushing it off. Something about work, passport issues, flight changes. I didn't push. I trusted her. Then everything changed. One day, out of nowhere, I got a message, not from her, but from a private investigator. I laughed at first, thought it was spam, but the guy was legit. He said he'd been hired by a family connected to a cold case, someone who was concerned about a woman using a false identity online. He told me Elise wasn't real. Or more accurately, she was once, just not Elise. The photos she had sent me, they belonged to a missing girl named Mia. She'd vanished 5 years earlier from my own city. I looked up her case. There it was, plain as day. Mia Reynolds, age 19. Last seen leaving a bookstore near downtown. Never made it home. Still missing. And the photos I thought were Elise, every single one was Mia. Her smile, her hair, her eyes looking right into mine in those videos. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself it was a mistake, but it wasn't. I compared the images. Same freckles, same dimple on her left cheek, same tilt of her head. It was undeniable. I went numb. Why would someone steal the identity of a missing girl? Why that girl? The PI said I wasn't the only one. Apparently, he found several other people online, mostly men, who had interacted with similar profiles using Mia's pictures. The stories were eerily similar: intense emotional connection, vague overseas location, always one step away from meeting in real life. Then disappearance. Coasted. Deleted profiles, no trace. Some of the guys had cut all contact afterward. Others hadn't been so lucky. One had gone missing himself. Another checked into a psychiatric facility claiming he'd been followed. The investigator didn't give me names, just enough to shake me to my core. It wasn't just catfishing. It was something darker. Something orchestrated. I went back through all my messages with Elise, combing for clues. And suddenly, all the little things I'd ignored started standing out like warning signs. The time she mentioned a flight from Wellingham International, a non-existent airport. The way her stories about her job shifted from fieldwork to tech consulting and back. The way she never once slipped up in a way that sounded human, always curated, always perfect. And then the details got worse. She'd asked me about my routines, what time I left the house, what I like to do on weekends, my favorite places to hang out. Back then, it felt like caring. Now it felt like surveillance. I remember asking her once for a live video call. Just once. Her response: not yet. Soon, I promise. She sent me a video instead, a pre-recorded clip of her laughing, brushing hair from her face. And I had watched that video a dozen times like it was proof. The day after the PI reached out, I tried messaging Elise. The profile was gone, like she never existed. The number she texted me from: disconnected. The email bounced back. I even checked reverse image search again. Mia's photos were still floating out there, attached to burner accounts, fake profiles. That's when the real fear kicked in. What if this wasn't about getting money or attention? What if it was about something far more insidious, luring people in, gaining their trust, learning their habits? And then what? I don't know. But I know I got close. Too close. I deleted the app, blocked everything, got a new number, even installed a security camera outside my apartment. My friends think I'm being paranoid. Maybe I am. But late at night, when my phone buzzes and no name pops up, my stomach still drops. Sometimes I dream about her, about Mia or Elise, or whoever she was. I see her walking down that street from one of her videos, only this time she's not smiling. She's crying, or maybe she's warning me. I don't know anymore. I don't know if Elise was a real person who got taken, or a puppet account created to draw others in. But I do know that someone used her face to crawl inside my life, my heart, my head. So yeah, be careful who you match with, because not every swipe is just a swipe. Sometimes it's a door you didn't mean to open. And once you do, you can't always close it behind you. I never thought a dating app would mess with my head like this. Honestly, I wasn't even that hopeful when I downloaded it. I mean, it's just another app, right? Swipe left, swipe right, chat, maybe meet someone. Nothing special. But what happened over the next few weeks? It was something else. It started when I matched with Celine. At first, she seemed normal enough. Cute photos, simple bio about loving old movies and weekend hikes. But as we started talking, I realized she knew way more about me than she should. Not the usual small talk stuff. She mentioned things that no one should really know unless they'd been there. Like, once she brought up this weird childhood memory I had never told anyone about. I remembered it clearly the time I got lost for an hour in the woods behind my old house when I was 7. Nobody but my family knew that story, and we never talked about it much. But she described it like she'd been there, even named the trees near where I'd been stuck. At first, I thought maybe she just guessed, or it was some lucky coincidence, but then the details kept coming. She knew my favorite childhood cartoon, the exact model of my first bike, even the name of the old dog we had that died years ago. I started wondering if maybe I'd accidentally shared too much online somewhere. Maybe she'd seen some of my old posts or photos. But I had always been careful about what I shared, and some of the stuff. It was stuff I hadn't thought about or mentioned to anyone in years. Then things got weird. More matches started showing up, women who knew those little moments, those private details. Not just from childhood, but from recent things I hadn't even talked about with friends, like the time I stayed up until 3 a.m. last month binge watching a show, or the name of the tiny coffee shop I went to alone one rainy afternoon. And it wasn't just general knowledge. They knew the exact song playing in the background that day. One of them even described my apartment layout like she had been inside it. I'd never met her, never invited her in, never showed anyone photos. It freaked me out. I deleted the app for a few days, but it didn't stop. I kept getting notifications from new profiles, new women with all these specific details. It was like the app was watching me, gathering every little thing, then using it to lure me in. I started paying attention to my phone's permissions. Sure enough, the app had access to my microphone, my location, and even my smart home devices, lights, speakers, cameras. I'd given those permissions without thinking, because I wanted it to work smoothly, but now it felt like a trap. One night, I was home alone, and the lights dimmed slightly just as I got a notification from one of these accounts. The message said something simple, but it referenced a joke I had made hours earlier when I was on a call with my brother. How could they know that? I realized the app was listening through my devices in real time, turning everything I said or did into a profile to target me with. I tried deleting the app again, but it kept coming back in weird ways. Sometimes I'd get a text from a number I didn't recognize with a link to a profile. Sometimes my phone would randomly open the app by itself, showing me these profiles. It was like it was embedded deep into my phone's system. One of the matches, Celine, was different though. She wasn't just repeating what she'd learned about me. She seemed obsessed, sending messages about how she understood me better than anyone. She mentioned things like my favorite childhood memory, the way my mom used to make pancakes on Sundays, even the story of how I scraped my knee falling off my bike when I was 6. It was unsettling, but at the same time I was drawn in, like she felt familiar in a way no one else did. I started spending more time chatting with her, ignoring the warning bells. Maybe I was just lonely. Maybe I wanted to believe someone really knew me. Then one day, my phone's voice assistant spoke out loud by itself while I was in the kitchen saying Celine's name. I checked the logs and saw that my devices had been recording conversations even when I thought they were off. The app was collecting every detail, building this picture of me that it used to keep me hooked. I looked into the company behind the app and found disturbing articles about similar apps using AI to analyze user behavior in real time, collecting data from microphones and smart devices. But no one talked about it openly because the tech was so new and unregulated. By this point, the app wasn't just showing me profiles. It was creating obsessions. Profiles that knew exactly what I wanted before I did, saying things only someone who lived in my head could say. It was terrifying, but I couldn't stop checking. One morning, I woke up and found Celine standing outside my apartment building. I swear I hadn't told anyone where I lived. She wasn't on the app anymore. Her profile was deleted, but there she was, smiling, holding a book I hadn't even mentioned to anyone, the same one I kept on my nightstand. That's when I realized this wasn't just about an app anymore. Someone or something was watching me, learning everything about me from every device I used, and sending people to mess with my life. I quit the app, disconnected all my smart devices, got a new phone. But the feeling didn't go away. Every time my phone buzzed, every time I saw a stranger looking my way, I wondered if it was them. The app never just matched me with potential dates. It matched me with obsessions. And now I'm wondering if it ever really mattered who I swiped on, or if I was never the one in control. If I could go back and swipe left, I would. Not just on him, on the app the night I re-downloaded it, the conversation that started it all. I was bored, sitting on my couch in sweatpants, watching a show I wasn't even paying attention to. You know how it goes. You tell yourself you're just seeing what's out there, but deep down, you're hoping for something, even if it's just someone decent to talk to for a while. That's when I matched with Shane. He had this kind of disarming smile. Not overly confident, not stiff either, just enough to feel real. His photos looked like they were taken by a friend, not staged. One was at a beach bonfire, one in a record store, one where he was laughing with his eyes almost shut. His bio was short, something about liking bad movies and cooking pasta that probably shouldn't be allowed. He messaged me first. The conversation was easy. Smooth, but not rehearsed. We started talking more. Late night messages, funny little voice notes, music links. I remember thinking finally someone who isn't weird or boring or just trying to meet up for one night. We met for coffee after 2 weeks. He looked exactly like his pictures. Taller than I expected. He gave me a book he said reminded him of our conversations. Not a new copy, one he had, with a little folded corner and scribbles in the margins. I thought it was sweet. We talked for hours. After that, it became a regular thing. Drinks, long drives, thrift stores, just hanging out. At first, it felt like something rare. He remembered everything I said, from dumb details about my favorite cereal to stuff I barely remembered sharing. He made playlists that felt like he read my mind. He knew when to text, when to back off, when to lean in. It was the kind of attention that almost felt unreal. Then little things started happening. It started with an old photo of me being posted on a random Twitter account. Not just any photo, a really personal one taken years ago in college. I hadn't seen it in ages. It had been taken at a party I barely remembered. I reported the account, and it got taken down, but it left a weird taste in my mouth. A week later, my boss called me into her office. Someone had emailed her from a fake address, attaching screenshots of private DMs I'd sent years ago. Things I said when I was younger and more reckless. The kind of stuff that looked worst out of context. I managed to explain it, but it messed with my head. I started locking everything down, socials cloud, old logins. Shane was supportive. He acted shocked, even angry on my behalf. Said people were horrible and obsessed with drama. He made me tea, listened to me vent, stay the night when I said I felt uneasy. He told me it would blow over, and for a while, I believed him. Then came the fake account. It started commenting on random posts from people I followed, sharing details about my past, old relationships, things I only ever told close friends, rumors from college that I thought were long buried. The name on the account was a throwback to a joke I'd made in a private group chat during my freshman year. It was too specific to be random. That's when I finally stopped ignoring the pattern. Back in college, I wasn't perfect. There was a girl, Laura. She was dating this guy at the time, and we didn't get along. It was one of those stupid, messy situations where we ended up in the same friend group, and things escalated. I said things I shouldn't have, spread some things that weren't completely true. I didn't think about how far it would go. We all moved on, or so I thought. I searched Laura online, trying to see what happened to her. I hadn't kept up after graduation. Her socials were private, but I found her LinkedIn. And there, clear as day, listed under relationships on her Facebook, was the guy she'd been dating back then. Shane. Different last name now. A newer profile photo, but it was him. My stomach dropped. All of it started making sense. The specific things he knew, the way he mirrored my interests just enough. How easily he got close. The things that had been leaking. He planned it. Not just from the moment we matched. From years ago, I don't know how long he watched, waited, gathered pieces of my life. But the longer I looked at it, the clearer it became. The book he gave me. I looked again. It wasn't a coincidence. It was one Laura used to carry around all the time. I recognized the scribbles. They were hers. I didn't confront him. I didn't scream or ask why. I just blocked him. Everywhere. Changed my number. Deleted the app. I locked down my accounts, erased everything I could. I called a lawyer about the posts. I filed a report, even though it felt pointless. The fake accounts stopped after that. At least for now. But here's the part that still keeps me up sometimes. He never reached out again. Not once. No apology. No explanation. Not even a final jab. Because it wasn't about being heard. It wasn't about starting drama or having the last word. It was already over. He'd done what he came to do, and I never saw it coming. I didn't even want to be on a dating app in the first place. My friend made the account for me as a joke. I'd just gotten out of a messy situation, and apparently I'd been mopey. So they thought swiping on strangers would help. I wasn't really into it, but one night I couldn't sleep and started scrolling. I wasn't expecting anything, just killing time, and then I matched with a girl named Ellie. She didn't look like the kind of person you'd expect to find on a dating app. No filters, no overdone angles. Just a soft smile in most of her pictures, with these light brown eyes and this vintage-looking jacket in all of them, like it was her favorite. Her bio was short. Something about books, coffee, and staying on rainy days. It felt real. And I don't know why I messaged her. Something dumb about her jacket. She replied the next morning, and we just started talking from there. She was funny in this really dry, smart way. She liked weird indie movies, obscure music, old diners. We talked for a few days before she asked if I wanted to meet up. She picked the spot, this tiny coffee place tucked behind a laundromat. I'd never even heard of it. The date was good. Weirdly good. She was exactly like she'd been online. Chill, kind of quiet but thoughtful. She made little comments about people in the cafe that cracked me up. We didn't stay long, maybe an hour and a half, but it felt like more. When we left, she said she'd text me later and got into a ride share and left. That was the last time I saw her. No message. Nothing. I waited a couple of days, then texted her. It went through, but she didn't respond. A couple of days after that, I called. Straight to voicemail. Her profile on the app was gone too. Just vanished. At first, I figured she just ghosted me. It sucked, but people do that, right? You think everything went well, and then you never hear from them again. Happens all the time. But something about it didn't sit right. I couldn't stop thinking about her. It wasn't even about being rejected. It just felt wrong. Like she hadn't ghosted me. Like she hadn't even made the choice. After about a week, I got curious and searched her name. Not in a weird stalker way. I just wanted to know who she was. But what I found didn't make any sense. Her name popped up in an article from 3 weeks earlier. Not a blog post or something dumb. A news story. A confirmed death. Ellie had died. Her full name, photo, even the jacket from her dating profile. It was all there. It said she was found in an abandoned building downtown. Cause of death unknown. Foul play suspected. The date listed, 10 days before our coffee date. I sat there staring at my screen for probably half an hour. I checked the date 3 times. Read the article 10 more. I thought it had to be a different person, but everything matched. It was her. There was no mistaking it. I'd met someone who was already dead. I thought maybe it was a sick joke. Maybe someone had used her photos to catfish people. But I talked to her. She knew things. She responded like a real person. It wasn't robotic or weird. It was her. I started going through everything. Like texts, the app, even the cafe we met at. I drove back there a couple days later just to see if anyone remembered us. But no one did. The barista didn't recognize her when I showed a photo. They said they'd never seen her before. That the only person sitting at my table that day had been me. I know how this sounds. I know what it makes me look like. A week later, I noticed a black car parked across from my apartment. Not marked, nothing flashy. But it was there when I left for work, and still there when I came back. The next day, it was there again. And the next. Always someone sitting in it, sometimes on their phone, sometimes just watching. Then the questions started. Two men showed up at my place one morning, plain clothes, but clearly official. Said they were following up on Ellie's case. Said my name had come up in her phone records. I didn't even know what to say. I told them we had one date, that I hadn't seen her since, but they looked at me like they didn't buy it. When I tried to show them our messages, they were gone. Her number wasn't in my phone anymore. Our texts had disappeared, like someone wiped them. And the dating app. Her profile was gone from there too, completely. I couldn't even find my chat history with her. Just a blank spot where it used to be. It didn't say much after that. Just told me not to leave town and to call if I remembered anything else. They come back twice since. Same questions, same quiet judgment in their eyes. The worst part, I can't prove anything. I've got no screenshots, no photos of us together, nothing that proves she even existed in my life. It's like she was a ghost from the start. Something, someone. I imagined, but I didn't imagine her. I know I didn't. She was real. She sat across from me. She drank coffee. She laughed at my jokes. And now she's gone. And they think I had something to do with it. Every now and then I think about messaging my friend, the one who made me the account, to see if they remember the name. Maybe Ellie matched with them too. Maybe there's something I missed, but I haven't done it. Part of me doesn't want to drag anyone else into this. The other part, I'm scared they'll say they never made the account at all. So now I just wait. I wake up, I go to work, I come home, and sometimes I catch that black car parked across the street. Still there, still watching. No one believes me, but she was real. And I think someone wanted her gone a second time. I'm not even sure where to start with this because honestly, I still don't know exactly what happened. It's been a few months, and I still catch myself thinking about it late at night. I keep going over every little detail, trying to figure out what I missed, what I ignored, what I should have seen. It started pretty normally. I was using a dating app just out of boredom, really. Work was stressful, and I didn't have many people in my life at that point. I wasn't looking for anything serious, just someone to talk to, maybe hang out with. You know how it goes, mindlessly swiping while you wait for your coffee or lay in bed at 2 a.m. Most of the people on there were either boring or creepy, but then I matched with Sammy. He didn't have that over-edited look a lot of guys on dating apps have. His photos were simple, just him at a bookstore, another with a dog, one in what looked like a cabin or something. He had this warm look like someone you already knew. When we started talking, it just clicked. He was funny without trying too hard, knew when to ask questions, and wasn't dry like most people on those apps. The kind of guy who actually made you laugh out loud through texts. We ended up messaging for hours the first night. He was smart too, in this casual, not showy way. Said he worked as a freelance designer, mostly from home. He liked quiet places, old movies, cooking, hiking, but not in the performative way people usually say it. I was surprised by how normal and genuine he seemed. After a few days, he asked if I wanted to meet up, and I said yes. I was a little nervous, but honestly, it felt more like meeting someone I already knew than a first date. We met at this little coffee shop that wasn't super crowded. He looked just like his photos. Tall, kind-faced, soft voice. A little quiet in person, but not awkward. The date went well, and we ended up walking around it afterward. It felt nice. Safe. There was something about him that made me feel really seen. Like he actually listened when I talked, and not just in a surface-level way. It was kind of addicting. We started seeing each other more after that. Mostly chill things, grabbing food, watching movies at my place, late night drives. He wasn't big on being photographed, and I thought that was kind of refreshing at first. Said he just didn't like seeing pictures of himself. Seemed fair enough, but he also didn't post anything on social media. No old photos, no posts, barely any followers. When I asked him about his past, like where he grew up or went to school, he always gave these vague answers, like moved around a lot, or never stayed in one place too long. I didn't push it because some people just aren't comfortable sharing stuff right away. But little things started stacking up. One night, we were sitting on my couch watching a movie. He'd taken his hoodie off because it was warm, and I'd noticed a tattoo on the inside of his forearm. Just a small symbol, kind of abstract. I don't know why it stuck out to me, but I kept thinking I'd seen it before. I asked him what it meant, and he brushed it off. Said it was a dumb thing he got when he was younger. The tone shift was sudden, though, like he wanted to change the subject fast. It bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Later that week, I kept thinking about it and Googled random keywords trying to figure out what the tattoo was. Nothing helpful came up, so I dropped it. Until I didn't. A few days later, I was scrolling through my phone in bed. A headline popped up about missing persons in the area. Something I'd searched a while back after going down a true crime rabbit hole. I clicked it without thinking. As I scrolled through, I froze. There it was. A photo of a guy who went missing almost a year ago. I didn't recognize the face, but I recognized the tattoo. It was exactly the same. Same spot. Same shape. The article said the guy's name was Theo, mid-20s, last seen leaving a concert downtown. Friends described him as quiet, kind, into graphic design and music. I just stared at the screen for what felt like forever. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I didn't say anything to Sammy when he texted. I needed time to think. I couldn't wrap my head around it. What were the chances? What did it even mean? I ended up going full detective mode. I reverse searched his photos, looked up every username I could remember him mentioning, searched forums, read through old posts on Reddit and Facebook. Nothing. It was like he didn't exist before a few months ago. No records, no old accounts, nothing that lined up with the version of him I thought I knew. I even tried messaging one of the friends mentioned in the missing person article just to ask if Theo had a tattoo. Never got a reply. I saw Sammy one more time after that. He came over and brought dinner like he usually did, acted completely normal. I couldn't stop staring at him, wondering if I was crazy, if I was overthinking it. At one point, he asked if I was okay. I lied and said I was just tired. We sat on the couch watching something, and I remember looking over at him, really looking at him, and realizing I didn't know this person at all. When he left that night, I locked the door and sat there on the floor for a while, trying to decide what to do. I ended up blocking his number, deleting the app, and scrubbing anything online that connected me to him. I didn't go to the police, mostly because I didn't have anything concrete. No real proof, just a tattoo, a gut feeling. And maybe that's not enough. But he's still out there, and I don't know who he really is. I don't think I ever did. I never really liked dating apps. They always felt a bit strange, like I was shopping for people instead of actually meeting them. But I had just moved to a smaller town for work. I didn't know anyone. It wasn't even a city, more like a cluster of neighborhoods pretending to be one. Nothing was ever really happening, and the boredom just crept in after a while. So I downloaded an app just to see what was out there. That's when I matched with Jenna. She looked different from the others right away. Her pictures had this weird vibe to them. Not creepy at first, just older. Like they'd been taken on film and scanned in. Not retro, though. More like candid shots from the early 2000s. The kind of pictures you'd find in someone's attic. Her style wasn't overly curated like most people on dating apps. No filters, no overly posed selfies. Just random, natural photos. One sitting on a couch with a book. One standing in front of a rusted car in the woods. One blurry one that looked like it was taken without her noticing. Something about them made me pause. I don't know why. They just felt real. We started talking, and it was easy. She wasn't overly enthusiastic, not dry either, just chill. Her replies weren't instant, but they felt thoughtful. She told me she wasn't big on going out, said she worked from home and liked quiet places. I asked if she wanted to meet for coffee, but she said she preferred something more low-key and invited me over to her place instead. Normally, I would have said no, but something about the way she phrased it made it sound harmless, like she just didn't like crowds. She sent me the address and I didn't recognize the street. I had to plug it into maps and even then the route looked weird. It took me past the main part of town, past some old train tracks, and into this rundown part I hadn't even realized was still occupied. Her building was this pale green apartment complex with chipped paint and a crooked gate. It didn't look condemned, but it definitely didn't look lived in either. When I got out of the car, the whole place felt silent. Not like people are inside watching TV quiet, but like no one's been here in a while quiet. The kind of quiet where your footsteps feel too loud. I walked up the stairs and found her unit 2B. The door was slightly open, just a crack. I thought maybe she was waiting for me to knock and be let in, but when I called out her name, no one answered. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. It was cold. Way colder than it should have been, like the heat hadn't been on for weeks. The lights were off, but a few dusty lamps were plugged in. One of them flickered when I passed it, like it was connected to a dying outlet. The furniture looked old, like 80s or 90s old, with this plastic-covered couch and a tiny box TV sitting on a wooden stand. There were books on the shelf, but the kind of books that looked untouched, like someone bought them just to fill space. A weird painting of a forest hung crooked on the wall. The weirdest part, there were no signs of anyone actually living there. No phone chargers, no dirty dishes, nothing in the trash. Just a strange, frozen-in-time kind of feeling. I called out her name again, louder this time, and still nothing. I should have left then, but I didn't. I thought maybe she was in another room. So I walked down the hall past a bathroom with a cracked mirror and a bedroom with the door slightly closed. The bedroom was worse. Way worse. The air felt thick, almost hard to breathe. There was a bed, neatly made, with a faded quilt on it. A vanity mirror sat against the wall, and on top of it were these old photos in frames. All of Jenna. Some were the same as the ones from the app. But the frames were dusty, like no one had touched them in years. One of them had a date written on the back, 2006. That couldn't be right. That was almost 20 years ago. That's when it started to click in my head. The photos, the cold, the dust, the silence. I left the room and walked back to the living room. I stood there for a second listening. Then I heard something from the hallway I'd just come from. Not a voice, not footsteps, just something. Like the sound of fabric moving or a breath, but not quite either. I turned around, and the bedroom door was shut. I hadn't closed it. I backed toward the front door, my brain still trying to catch up. That's when I noticed something else. Next to the TV was a folder half open. Inside were printouts of conversations. Dating app conversations. My messages to Jenna were in there, printed out, highlighted, and not just mine, there were others. Pages and pages of them. Different names, same format. All guys, all talking to Jenna. I didn't wait any longer. I grabbed the doorknob and left, nearly tripping down the stairs. Got in my car and drove without looking back. Later that night, I tried to pull up Jenna's profile again. It was gone. Like it had never existed. The messages disappeared too, like she unmatched me. Or maybe like the app scrubbed it. I even tried looking up the address online just to see if I could find anything. What I found was a newspaper article. From 2007. A woman named Jenna had died in that apartment. Gas leak. Her body wasn't found for days. Her photo in the article. Same one as her dating profile. I haven't told anyone about this until now. I don't even know what the point of it all was. I've heard stories of people getting catfished or robbed. This wasn't that. Nothing was stolen, nothing was said, and nothing actually happened. But someone's still using her photos, and they're still inviting people to that apartment. I don't think they ever leave.